Chapter 61 The Forgetting Curse and the True Face. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Friday, in defense against the dark arts class, Lockhart acted as if nothing had happened. His teaching mode still feels terrible, especially when he let a few students go up to play trolls and werewolves, and began to interpret his glorious history. It was literally the worst class I've ever had. Neville was miserable, and even Malfoy was not spared being pulled over to become a vampire. John still didn't add a point. Originally, Lockhart wanted John to come up and play the Tibetan snowman, but seeing John's murderous eyes, he didn't dare to continue asking. Hermione was also a little skeptical at this time, but how can someone who can write such an excellent article be a person who doesn't understand anything? She was very confused. Neville, why are you carrying a sword? Ron was still annoyed that his wand flew out and hit Professor Flitwick on the head in Charms class this morning. When he turned around and saw Neville with a sword on his back, Harry was surprised. Are you going to take the sword to Malfoy? No, it's John. He said he wanted to make me stronger, and he said he wanted me to become a juggernaut. Neville felt a lot of strange eyes, and he didn't want to carry his sword, but John let him get used to it. His words reminded Harry of the scene where John wielded a big sword to fight the troll last year. Harry thought thoughtfully, maybe John is protecting Neville from Malfoy. After all, Malfoy is most afraid of John. Ron felt that turning his back on the sword didn't mean Neville became John, but it wasn't out of the question. Let's go see Hagrid tomorrow, Harry suggested. Hermione had no arrangements that day, so she agreed. 4 people were walking in the hallway, and John came out through a door. John greeted several people. Hi, Ron, I'm looking for you. Hearing that he was looking for him, Ron froze for a moment. John, what's the matter with you? You forgot, I promised to repair your wand. John raised his small bag and said with a smile, I've been looking for some materials these days to see if I can repair it for you. Ron excitedly held John's hand and said happily, Great John, you didn't even know that the damn wand hit Professor Flitwick's head today. That's really miserable. John took his wand, and the 2 pieces were taped together. The simple and rude maintenance method makes dogs shake their heads when they see it. Aspen wood with unicorn hair. It's Charlie's, it's mine when I go to school. Ron blushed a little. His family was a little poor, and he had to take his brother's wand even. Seeing this, John shook his head and said regretfully, if this is the case, I suggest you give up this wand. Please John, I don't have any more money to buy new ones. When he heard that it could not be repaired, Ron became anxious. He didn't want to receive any more Howler letters. Harry on the side comforted him. Ron, I can give you money to buy a new one. Harry, who is a hidden rich man, is very generous, and Ron feels a little uncomfortable. He doesn't want to spend his friend's money. No, this wand has been damaged. Maybe the core can be kept to match the new wood. I just have a good material on hand. As Ollivander said, the wizard chooses the wand, and the wand chooses the wizard. John had some doubts that the reason why Ron often made mistakes in using magic might be because of the wand. He pulled out the unicorn wool core inside, and John slipped the aspen wood to Ron. It will take about a week. You can use this one during this time. Taking out his spare wand, John smiled and said, it just so happens that this is also a unicorn hair wand core. After Ron took it, although the length was much shorter, it was still usable. Then I'll go first, Neville, you happen to leave with me. Pulling Neville away, John said goodbye to the 3 little ones. Neville had been subjected to John's destructive training, and by the time he left he couldn't even lift his hands. John had cut a nice section of Whomping Willow for the wood, and the sensitivity of it might have made the wand even better. On the way back, he met Lockhart, the liar teacher, smiling at John. Mr. Wick, I think we can go to the office and chat for a while. Lockhart extended an invitation to John, who wondered what his idea was, but he wasn't worried. Maybe Lockhart and Quirrell were Voldemort's subordinates, right? Nodding in agreement, John followed Lockhart to the Defense Against the Dark Arts office on the 2nd floor. It is full of photos of Lockhart, and it is not difficult to see that Lockhart is a narcissistic and vain person. After sitting down, Lockhart asked, I heard that you once defeated a troll in the 1st grade. You are really a talented wizard. Of course, this is not as good as the 5 consecutive Wizard Weekly Awards for the most charming smile. While talking, he still did not forget to boast. John looked at him blankly, which made Lockhart a little embarrassed after talking for a while. Ahem, I want to ask, what do you think of me, how do you think of defense against the dark arts? Lockhart came to Hogwarts for fame and fortune. Although he is a best-selling author, his strength and stories have been controversial. In order to dispel the voices from the outside world, he volunteered to teach at Hogwarts. It's just that he forgot that the mysterious man left a curse on the professor of defense against the dark arts. The first class of school made him a joke, and today's class also made him realize that his tall image in the students' minds has disappeared. He found that whether it was Slytherin or Gryffindor, they all maintained a kind of respect for John in front of them. This made Lockhart think about something else, and he said sincerely, "It's not that I can't help it, but you also know that there are too many things to be busy as a celebrity, so I want to hire an assistant. It is best to help me fix some things." "You mean that your teaching level is not good, so you want to quit?" John glanced at Lockhart and said bluntly, "With all due respect, you should have heard the legend about the professor of defense against the dark arts, right? This position is not a good position." Lockhart couldn't help being a little angry when his heart was spoken. He didn't expect that he would let the students despise him when he came to talk. He argued, "How is it possible? I am Gilderoy Lockhart, holder of the Order of Merlin 3rd class, consecutive. Okay, it's not impossible for you to want my help, but I can only help you during the 2nd grade class, and I can't help you at other times." John interrupted him, more and more suspicious that the content of Lockhart's story had been written by the gunman. Lockhart's face darkened. What John said was indeed a problem. He couldn't hire an assistant for every grade, could he? Seeing that John had no respect for him, Lockhart knew that the other party had doubted him. In order to maintain his image as a powerful wizard, Lockhart had to abandon this plan. That being the case, don't blame yourself for making the first move. He pulled out his wand the instant John turned, obliviate that this is his best spell, and with it he has stolen many wonderful stories from various wizards. A smile appeared on his face. As long as John forgot about today's conversation, he could still continue to use his poor teaching to become a professor of defense against the dark arts. At the moment when the spell was activated, the amulet on John's body gave an early warning. The Oblivion curse is counteracted by the Iron Armor curse. John's face sank. This guy dared to do something to himself at school. He turned to look at the astonished Lockhart unkindly, and John said coldly, "It seems that you are not a good person. Why are you okay?" This was the first time Lockhart's invincible Oblivion charm had failed. John drew his wand and pointed it at Lockhart. In the next second, white light exploded in the office, and cracks appeared on the walls. All the photos of Lockhart in the room were destroyed, and Lockhart was leaning against the wall with panic on his face. "Wait, I'm leaving Hogwarts right now, please let me go." Lockhart panicked. He didn't expect this little wizard to actually dare to do something, and that spell was aimed at his head. If he was touched, his head might explode like a balloon. While begging for mercy, Lockhart's hand dishonestly touched the wand beside him. Just as they were about to touch, a white light from John's wand blasted a hole in Lockhart's hand. Now Lockhart dared not move, and John stared at him, thinking about what to do with him. Chapter 62 Nimbus 2001 and the Slug. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ever since John decided that he was going to be the next Dumbledore in the wizarding world, he began to accumulate his power, such as Dharma Alex, Mundungus, Tang Mi and others are all his contacts outside. Lockhart's strength is very poor, even elves can't solve it, but he has a huge group of book fans and many publisher friends outside. This made John think a little bit. Gilderoy Lockhart, it was you who chose to tell me the truth, or I to offer you Veritasrum. John randomly took out a bottle of potion from the small bag, which scared Lockhart enough. He didn't have much strength to speak of, and Veritasrum was a kind of thing that would break his brain if he drank too much. He backed away in fright when he heard that John was going to give himself something like this. It's a pity that there is a wall behind him and there is no way out, so he has no choice but to compromise. As if his spine had been removed, he slumped on the ground and told the story of how he cheated the story with the amnesiac curse and became himself. John listened to his words with a strange expression on his face. Are you saying that your stories are copied from others? Staring at Lockhart's awkward smile, John was surprised. With a flick of his wand, John conjured a chair. Sitting on the chair, he said with a half smile, I didn't expect you to be a social expert, although your strength is a bit weaker, and you are full of lies." Lockhart saw that he didn't mean to smash himself, so he stood up with a stern face, and said awkwardly, "I really wanted to be an adventurer at first, but my strength is too weak. The only thing I can do is forget it." After graduating from Hogwarts, he tried to travel around as in the book, but what he got was beaten up and bruised. One day he met an old wizard in a tavern. After the other party told the story of his adventures with the Tibetan snowman, Lockhart had a bad idea. He succeeded, using the amnestic charm to make the wizard forget the experience, and he recorded the story and published it, becoming everyone's favorite Gilderoy Lockhart, the winner of the Wizard Weekly Most Charming Smile Award. This made him even more irresistible, taking stories from others and embellishing them so that he could make them his own, rising to the top of the market. He is the darling of publishers, and the most charming smile that young women love. Gradually, he got lost in Vanity Fair. "You are a talent." John tapped the cup after listening to it, and it was refilled with tea. Picking up his teacup and taking a sip, John said, "Don't worry, I won't drive you out of Hogwarts. Instead, you can stay here and continue teaching." "Really?" The surprise came too suddenly. Lockhart hurried over and said, "What do you want? I mean, what do I have to give?" He has made up his mind, as long as John doesn't expose himself, no matter if it's money or what, he will be satisfied. John glanced at the anxious Lockhart, pointed at Lockhart, and said flatly, "I want you." "What?" Lockhart was stunned. Did John like himself? Thinking of this, he couldn't help shivering. "Can you change it to another one? I'm afraid my fans will be sad, and you're still so young." Lockhart's twitching posture almost made John spit out a mouthful of water. He put down his glass and said angrily, "I want you to help me with my work." Knowing that he had misunderstood, Lockhart heaved a sigh of relief but also had doubts. What would John, a second-year student, do by himself? "Lockhart, you are a smart person. You should know that cleverness doesn't last long. I can save you the position of Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts at Hogwarts. Correspondingly, you have to do something for me. As for what it is, it may be to ask you to write a letter, or it may be to ask you to go out and find some people." A gleam flashed in John's eyes. Lockhart had accumulated a lot of connections over the years, especially those noble ladies from ancient pureblood families. As long as Lockhart said a word, these people could be said to be crazy. As long as Lockhart continues to maintain the human design, these ladies will be a considerable force. John stood up and held out his hand to the somewhat embarrassed Lockhart, smiling. "Let's have a good cooperation, Professor Lockhart." Lockhart didn't know how John could help him, but it was his only option, reaching out to complete the deal with John. Saturday, John wanted to stay in the Gryffindor Chamber of Secrets, but Malfoy knocked on his bedroom door outside. "Look well, John, how those poor Gryffindors will be humiliated by us." Malfoy is holding Nimbus 2001, the newest broom in the Nimbus series. In terms of performance, it is a bit higher than the Nimbus 2000. As for such broomsticks, the Slytherin Quidditch team has 7. John shook his head helplessly, and the Krypton Gold behavior was fine. They found Professor Snape and got a special approval note by using the reason that they needed to be familiar with the new equipment, and deliberately picked a time for Gryffindor practice. John didn't want to get involved. If it wasn't for Gore and Crabbe, the two guys would keep knocking on the door. He didn't want to come here at all. After arriving at the Quidditch pitch, John stepped aside, and Malfoy had already stepped forward to provoke him. Harry wanted to visit Hagrid, but Wood, the Quidditch maniac, had developed a new tactic and pulled them all over for training. Ron and Hermione also followed to watch Harry train, and the little fan Colin also followed. The camera in his hand never stopped. This made Wood suspect that he was the ghost sent by Slytherin to inquire about the news. George reminded him, "Slytherins don't need spies, Oliver." Once Quidditch was involved, Wood seemed to be a different person. He asked grumpily, "How do you know?" George pointed to the bottom, where a group of people in big green robes and Quidditch uniforms came over, and said, "Because they came by themselves." Wood looked and saw the Slytherin people coming, and he immediately stopped them unkindly. "Flint, it's our training time. Get out, please." Marcus Flint, the Slytherin Quidditch captain, was tall and burly. He showed a sly look and said with a sneer, "This place is huge, Wood." When the Gryffindor players saw that they were not friendly, they all surrounded them. Wood said sharply, but I've booked the stadium. I've booked it, that he repeatedly emphasized that Flint's arrival this time was well prepared. But I have a note specially signed by Professor Snape for training our new seekers. That I saw Flint take out the note specially signed by Professor Snape, which made Wood misfire. Wood asked unwillingly, you have added a new seeker. Where is it? Malfoy had a mean smile on his face, and he knew it was time to make his own appearance, walking out from behind the tall team members, with a smug smile on his face. It made Harry's hands itch. Fred Weasley still remembered that Lucius Malfoy had a fight with his father, and he said in disgust, aren't you the son of Lucius Malfoy? This sentence hit the Slytherins' hands, and they laughed smugly and wildly. You actually mentioned Draco's father, so you should look at his generous gift to Slytherin. The 7 light wheels 2001 were brand new, smooth and shiny, making the Gryffindor players' eyes blurred. Now Gryffindor could only watch Slytherin proud. Ron and Hermione came over and couldn't bear to see Malfoy so proud. Hermione stood out for Gryffindor, and said sharply, at least none of the Gryffindor players need to spend money to join the team. This hit Malfoy's pain point. His face darkened, and he said viciously, no one asked you, you stinky little mud. He didn't finish his sentence, and Malfoy panicked when he remembered that John was not far away. Although they didn't finish speaking, the Gryffindor team understood the meaning, and they surrounded them furiously, and Slytherin had to stand in front. When Malfoy looked up, Ron shot directly angrily. Go eat slugs. Ron, who had changed his wand, shot decisively, and Malfoy was hit and fell to the ground. He felt something slippery in his throat, as if it was drilling out. He opened his mouth and spat out a fat slug, which made him sick. Immediately after it got out of hand, Malfoy kept spitting out slugs, which sent him to the school hospital. Ron was surrounded by Gryffindor, shouting that he did a good job. This made Ron couldn't help but tilt his neck, and even Hermione looked at him with admiration. John shook his head when he saw this scene, and said, Draco should be given a little bit of trouble. Power is supreme in this world. He shouldn't laugh at people who are stronger than him. Using blood to measure a person's identity seems very stupid to John. Although both parties were his friends, John felt that Draco was not wronged at all for being beaten. He could try to break the spell, but John felt he had to give Draco a hard time. Speaking of which, if John hadn't changed Ron's wand, Draco wouldn't have been injured just now. It can only be said that if you don't die, you won't die. Chapter 63 Restoration and Assistance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. John goes to Hagrid. He wants to ask Hagrid for some oak resin. The production and repair of wands are very complicated. Not only do you need to find materials, but you also need to go through patient polishing and waiting. When he arrived at Hagrid's hut, Lockhart was pestering Hagrid to show off his knowledge by teaching a magizoologist how to keep a nymph from entering a well. John went to knock on the door, and Hagrid ran to open it with relief. Lockhart wanted to sell his book to Hagrid, but when he saw John who opened the door and came in, he froze immediately. Professor Lockhart, I remember you still have textbooks to deal with. John glanced at Lockhart and gave him a reason to leave. Lockhart nodded quickly as if he just remembered. Yes, I almost forgot, thank you, Mr. Wick. He ran out in a hurry, as if there was a fire dragon chasing him behind him. This made Hagrid puzzled for a while, but Hagrid was very happy to have a friend visit him. John, I was thinking about when you would come over. The things you asked me to buy are already here. Hagrid took out a big bag of things. These were the materials John had entrusted to buy. John was invited to sit down and made a cup of hot black tea with rock cakes. Hagrid, do you know where there is an oak tree? I need some oak resin. Hagrid waved his hand, patted his chest and said boldly, of course, there is no place in the Forbidden Forest that I don't know about. Wait a moment, and I'll get you some. Thank you, Hagrid. Hagrid was always so enthusiastic, and after agreeing, he went to the oak tree to get the resin for John. While waiting, the wooden door was knocked again, and it was Harry and the others who came over. John, are you here? Seeing John, Hermione was a little surprised. John was puzzled until he saw something wrong with Ron's face. What's up with him? Harry said angrily. It's Malfoy. He cast a curse on Ron. We want to find Hagrid to see if we can solve it. Then it's not a coincidence for you to come. Hagrid just went out. Let the 3 little ones in. John saw Ron's uncomfortable face as if he was about to vomit, and guessed the curse. He's under the Ascaris curse. John has read a lot of books during this time. It can be said that he reads them every day. Seeing Ron's uncomfortable appearance, he concluded that it was the roundworm curse. Hagrid came back at this time and was even happier to see the three little ones. Here, take this, it will feel better to spit out like this. Hagrid handed the bucket to Ron, and John came to Ron's side and said, "Pick up your clothes and show your belly." Ron was a little dazed, and Hermione and Harry next to him had already started directly. After the clothes were pulled up, Ron's belly was exposed, and there was a bulge on the belly, as if there were small bugs crawling around in it. "I think I can handle it." John pondered for a moment, pointing his wand at Ron's belly with his left hand. The roundworms receded. The white light hit the stomach, as if a punch had been punched in the stomach. Ron's face turned bitter. He held the iron bucket tightly and opened his mouth to spit it out. 5 or 6 worms were spit out by him, and it was finally comfortable now. "Great John, where did you learn this spell?" Hagrid asked, applauding. John said without changing his face, "Of course it's in the library." In fact, he learned it in the Gryffindor Chamber of Secrets, which contains many strange curses and spells. Among them is a curse called the Blood Curse, which is very evil and is inherited by blood. The cursed person can become a snake, known as the Blood Curse Orc, and will become a real snake over time. This made John very curious about what would happen if the Blood Curse Orc was bitten by a werewolf, and the two curses would collide. Hagrid brought back the oak resin for John, and John didn't intend to stay any longer. He put the materials purchased by Hagrid into a small bag, carried the oak resin and left. "I'll go first, Hagrid, thanks again for your help." Hagrid said thank you again and again, and after John left, he said with emotion, "John is really the best little wizard I have ever seen, just like Riddle." No, I said you are also excellent." Seeing San Xiaoji looking over, he waved his hands again and again. "Riddle? No, don't mention that name." Hagrid didn't want to mention this past. The three little ones looked at each other, and they could see that this name seemed to be something unusual for Hagrid, but they tacitly didn't ask any further questions. Although Hagrid had a big mouth, he obviously didn't want to bring up this matter. Back in the Gryffindor Chamber of Secrets, John made a staff out of whomping willow branches and implanted with unicorn hair. After all this was done, John sanded off its edges and soaked it in oak resin. Oak is a magical tree. Legend has it that oak contains magical powers. A wand soaked in resin can make the wand more suitable for wizards. After completing the restoration, John went to take out the materials for alchemy. He found that by refining items, his skill alchemy would level up faster. Although there is no experience value to look at, you can feel the improvement. After refining a batch of props for sale in Johnny Silverhand's shop, John returned to the dormitory and asked Basil to deliver them. The store business is still tepid, and the reputation is gradually spreading. Tommy Shelby wrote a letter, which mentioned that there are wizards in Nocturne Alley who have different ideas about Johnny Silverhand's shop. John wrote back to him, telling him to handle it carefully, preferably not to alarm the Aurors. Recently, the Aurors have been searching for black magic items seriously, and there are several in Johnny Silverhand's shop. At the same time, Tangmi can start contacting a few werewolf friends, and he is ready to show his skills. Dharma Alex has been notified by the Merlin Sir Order of the Time for the award, and if nothing else happens, the Merlin First Class medal cannot be escaped. The fastest is October and the slowest is Christmas. This matter will be reported and spread. After replying to the letter, John walked out of the dormitory. Since he promised to let Lockhart continue to stay in the school, he would not go back on his word. When he came to the Whomping Willow, he stopped the Whomping Willow and entered the passage. The cabinet in the Screaming Shack was still there, but John used the levitation charm to remove it. When it came time for defense against the dark arts class, people were surprised to find John standing by the podium. "Gentlemen and ladies, I'm sorry for the bad class I had last time. After reflection, I feel that teaching that is too novel is not suitable for Hogwarts, so I decided it's time to show my true abilities." Lockhart bragged and never drafted. He showed his white teeth and smiled. "Mr. John Wick is the assistant I invited, and he will be in charge of some assistance in teaching defense against the dark arts. Of course, I have been familiar with it under my guidance in advance." Everyone looked at John in disbelief, and John rolled his eyes. "This Lockhart really looks good in acting." he lifted the cloth-covered cabinet to reveal a cabinet that Neville felt familiar with. Lockhart smiled confidently, blinked and said, "Now, please line up, we are going to start this great and vivid class." It has to be said that Lockhart is a person who can mobilize emotions. Hearing what he said, even the students who are already disappointed can't help but look forward to it. Seeing that the table was in the way, John took out his wand and waved it around, and the table became a fence around the front of the classroom. This hand transformation technique is already proficient, and if Professor McGonagall sees it, it will be a plus. Lockhart stepped out in gorgeous robes, like a pheasant in a crown. "I'll teach you the official first lesson, how to defeat the troll." Lockhart is very good at memorizing manuscripts. As long as no hands are involved, he can be said to be the king of mouth. This is not difficult to see from the fact that he can write stories about stealing others. He talked about his book Walking with Trolls in a serious manner, and then introduced the weaknesses of trolls from it. The troll's head is very fragile. We only need to lightly cast a levitation charm and let its wooden stick fall on our head to solve it. Now. Lockhart clapped his hands, and John came out. Lockhart said, "Let my assistant demonstrate to everyone." Demo. The little wizards were puzzled. John waved his wand lightly, and the originally locked cabinet was opened. Immediately afterwards, there was a murmur from inside the cabinet, which made the expressions of the three little ones more frightened. They were all too familiar with this voice, the voice of the troll they encountered in first grade. Then they wondered, that cabinet is so small, how can a troll be hidden in it? John used a clemency to create a troll in his mind. The boggart mistook him for being afraid of trolls, so turned into a troll and pushed open the cupboard door and came out. "It's really a monster." Ron was horrified. John stared at the mallet in the troll's hand, and when the troll walked towards him, he shot decisively. Wingardium Leviosa. The big stick in the troll's hand flew up uncontrollably, and then smashed heavily on the top of his head. The boggart turned into a troll has the characteristics of a troll, and his head fell to the ground in a daze. The giant monster was easily dealt with in this way, and everyone applauded enthusiastically after they realized it. Lockhart came out and said loudly, "As expected of my teaching, John Wick performed well, and Slytherin has 10 points. This class changed from the bad one before." In the lively class, the boggart who turned into a troll was smashed again and again. After the class was over, everyone changed their previous reviews, and Lockhart became outstanding. Chapter 64 Percy and Powers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. You can see, Professor Lockhart's real teaching level. Come on Hermione, that's obviously John teaching us. Lockhart didn't even take out his wand. After the defense against the dark arts class, Hermione immediately found Harry Ron to justify Lockhart's name. Ron was even more sure that Lockhart was a guy with no name, because Lockhart didn't even take out his wand during the whole class. It was less John teaching than Lockhart teaching. When Neville didn't use the levitating charm, it was John who directly used transfiguration to control the troll. Lockhart was obviously scared and hid behind the podium. "Humph, but his class is very good, isn't it?" Hermione wanted to refute, but she was convinced in her heart. Watching the idol step down from the altar made her very entangled. Ron shrugged and said indifferently, "If John can be allowed to teach in the future, I have no problem with Lockhart." Harry watched the two arguing, remembering the sound he heard when he was sent off to answer Lockhart's letter on Saturday. Because of Ron and Malfoy's bad behavior of exchanging jinxes, both he and Ron were imprisoned, but the good news is that Malfoy's protective father didn't come to Hogwarts to make a big fuss. "I heard that John settled everything for them." It made Harry feel very grateful to John. At this moment, Filch let out a growl. The Weasley twins sniggered, and Filch was furious as frog brains were smeared all over the walls. He's a squib, no magic, only able to clear bit by bit. Without thinking about it, he knew it was a prank from the Weasley twins. Seeing this scene, Percy walked up to reprimand the two with a stern and serious face. "You shouldn't be playing pranks like this. Come on, Percy." "No, it should be the prefect. Maybe you can get into the Ministry of Magic. Because you're as dull as the people there." George and Fred sang together, which made Percy very angry. Percy is an outlier in the Weasley family. Although Mrs. Weasley has always regarded him as a pride, he is out of tune with the whole family atmosphere. After all, no one in Weasley, except Percy, would read such a boring and terrifying book as How the Prefects Gained Power. Percy can't do anything about it. He wants more power. For this reason, even if Lockhart's teaching level is poor, he respects him. After all, the affection of his family overcame him. So he had no choice but to leave a warning and leave in despair. The Weasley twins were making faces behind, and Ron couldn't stand his brother when he saw it. The twins often bully themselves, but they don't reprimand them rigidly and seriously like Percy, not to mention Weasley. Even in Gryffindor, Percy looks like an outlier. After all, in Gryffindor, you can study poorly, but you definitely can't have friends and a sense of humor. John, you're right. I told Dad not to come to school. Next time I see Weasley, I'll definitely make him cry. In the Slytherin team, Malfoy proudly told John that he stopped Mr. Malfoy. Malfoy cursed at Weasley to get the hell out of Hogwarts after being attacked by Ron with the Jinx on Saturday. John frowned when he heard this, and said to him earnestly, "Draco, don't be like a child. A powerful wizard doesn't rely on his father. You can return him a curse, but never let people look down on you." This made Malfoy change his mind, because he did return a Jinx, which felt more comfortable than having Dad come to school to make a fuss. Fighting back also made this matter unreasonable for both parties, and Mr. Malfoy probably won't be able to please him if he comes over. Daphne trotted to John, with a trace of admiration hidden in her eyes. She said coquettishly, "You are awesome. The transfiguration in class just now was so perfect. Where did you get a giant monster?" "Oh. That's what Professor Lockhart got." John did what he said, and maintained Lockhart's image outside, at least so that he would no longer be so questionable. Daphne is not stupid. She wrinkled her pretty nose, and said angrily, "Come on, he doesn't have that ability. My God, I don't know why my mother just likes him." John smiled non-committal. That troll was made by a boggart. Boggart can reflect the inner fear, but not too strong in terms of strength. Even if it becomes a giant monster, it may not even have half the strength of the giant monster. Just build a dread troll with a clemency, stand in front of it, and the boggart will turn into the creature you want it to be. He remembered that in Harry's third year, the Defense Against the Dark Arts professor had captured boggarts. Of course, the other party was teaching how to deal with boggarts, not trolls. Lockhart's strength is not very good, but the stories are all taken by others to be true. The knowledge inside is indeed useful, as long as you follow the teaching above. Even if it is criticized by others, it will definitely not be called bad. It's a pity that Lockhart didn't realize this. In the lesson plans that John set for him, except for the second grade, it's best not to do anything. Most of them are based on the stories in the book combined with theories. Defense Against the Dark Arts, which mainly talks about the counterattack and defense against magical creatures and black magic persecution. Coping with this school year is still very simple. After becoming an assistant in the Defense Against the Dark Arts class, many students came to realize that John was different from them. Even Professor McGonagall praised him for his transfiguration, which made Slytherins extremely proud, especially in the bonus points for Lockhart's goodwill. John led the Slytherin point funnel all the way to triumph, leaving the other three houses far away. This made the Slytherin straighten up. "George, Fred." Percy's roar sounded in the corridor. John walked out of the room of requirement, and saw the two sneaking back to Gryffindor Tower. Percy walked down the corridor in a huff, and he caught the two guys from the night tour. With just one glance, he can confirm that those two iconic flame red hair are definitely his two younger brothers, but to his surprise, he didn't catch the Weasley twins, but John of Slytherin. "I should give you a warning. Although I won't deduct your points, you have violated the school's regulations." Percy wore a pair of glasses and was neatly dressed, unlike Ron and the others who never got dressed. As he spoke, John shrugged, then thought of something. "Percy Weasley, speaking of which we haven't spoken much yet." John was very impressed with the Weasleys. Apart from the two Weasleys who had already graduated, Percy had the lowest sense of existence, but you can't deny Percy's excellence. He has obtained 12 certificates in the OWL exam, which is a king of papers and a top student. It even makes people suspect that if it wasn't because he was Weasley, he might have been assigned to Ravenclaw. After all, the Weasleys are all Gryffindors, and the Sorting Hat probably doesn't want to break the tradition. For Slytherin, the first reaction of all Weasleys was to hate, but in front of him was John Wick, the man who had saved the three little ones. Percy frowned, and politely refused. "Sorry, I still have to help the professor make inspections." If that's the case, I don't think you need to worry. John smiled slightly and said relaxedly, are you interested in going to the Defense Against the Dark Arts office for a cup of black tea? That he seemed to be saying it was as easy as going home, which surprised Percy. Lockhart is unreliable but also a professor, and he is too relaxed. Thinking that John was the Defense Against the Dark Arts assistant, Percy relaxed his brows, and readily agreed, okay, but only for a short while. That's enough. John smiled, but he thought of another one in his heart. If there are any unexpected plots in the Harry Potter series that are impressive, a traitor who defected to the Ministry of Magic appeared in the Weasley family of the Iron Dumbledore party, which is definitely one, and this person is Percy who craves power, which also makes Percy a fresh memory in John's few plots. He remembered that Percy was doing well in the Ministry of Magic, even going so far as to get into trouble with the Weasley family in order to climb up. This climbing spirit was what John needed, and he thought about it. Maybe he could recruit Percy Weasley. The contacts in my hands are very attractive. Chapter 65 Myrtle and the Honors. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Office of Defense Against the Dark Arts. Gilderoy Lockhart was answering letters to his fans when there was a knock on the door. Oh, what a headache, my little fans won't let me go even at night. He thought it was a book fan who came to ask him to sign an autograph, and he never got tired of it and even felt happy. Pure fame and vanity make him happy, even if it will make him lose his autograph quickly. After opening the door, his bright smile became a little embarrassed. John Wick, I mean Mr. Wick, why are you here? His performance made Percy a little strange, because Lockhart claimed to have taught John, but he looked like he was in awe of John. Professor Lockhart, we have some things to talk about, and I hope you don't mind us taking up some time here. John walked in, and that look was the complete opposite of his verbal respect. Percy nodded respectfully to Lockhart. Professor Lockhart, you are still actively preparing textbooks at night. Yes, I'm working on the textbook. Lockhart took the envelope away from his desk calmly. After Percy came in, he closed the door, crossed his hands on his abdomen, and rubbed his two thumbs in circles. John sat on a chair and with a flick of his wand conjured a chair for Percy. Instead, Lockhart turned into a waiter, bringing out tea and cups. I have some friendship with Professor Lockhart during the holidays. We are pen pals. Seeing Percy's surprise, John made up a random reason. He smiled and said, after all, connections are an indispensable part of a good wizard, and the same is true for a good wizard like Professor Lockhart. Hearing himself being praised, Lockhart straightened up. Percy nodded approvingly. His way of thinking was not favored in the Weasley family, and it was rare for someone to agree with his point of view, so he had some good feelings for John. Picking up a piece of toffee, John put it in his mouth, and took a sip of black tea after the sweetness burst out. Similarly, contacts should not be limited to outside the school. To be honest, Percy Weasley, I know that if you want to become the president of the student union next year, the support of the four houses is essential. Everyone could see Percy's ambition. John picked up a piece of taffy and put it in Percy's hand, and said with a chuckle, I will get rid of Slytherin for you. Why did you help me? Percy held the taffy, a little confused. He was a little uneasy. Although he was clearly a fourth grader than John, he was overwhelmed by his aura. Connections. John said meaningfully, as I said, you are an excellent person, and you will be the same in the Ministry of Magic after graduation. If that's the case, why don't you make friends? The easiest way to deal with Percy was to show him real help. John pointed to Lockhart. He said, Professor Lockhart will help you establish prestige among the students. You need to show your excellence. The Defense Against the Dark Arts assistant is a good stage. Defense Against the Dark Arts currently only has one assistant. If there is one more assistant, it will not only reduce the pressure on Lockhart, but also make that assistant stand out among the students. John used this to bribe Percy, which made Percy very tempted. Percy unwrapped the taffy and put it in his mouth. He nodded with a smile on his face and said, You're right, connections are really important. He agreed to John's bribe. John held out his hand, and Percy shook hands with him. In the Defense Against the Dark Arts office, Lockhart witnessed the transaction between the two powerful men. After Percy left, Lockhart asked with some anxiety, Aren't you afraid that he will find out my secret? Would it be too dangerous to have one more assistant? No, you are his backer, and he will not betray you, as long as you continue to give him power. John glanced at Lockhart and gave him a booster, not forgetting to warn him. Put away your flashy ideas, just use the lesson plan I gave you, and don't use magic. Lockhart's level of magic was so bad that John wondered how he even graduated from Hogwarts. Smiling awkwardly, Lockhart was so fond of showing off that he couldn't figure out the nature of his magic. Rookie, he took out the snail amulet and a ring inlaid with emeralds from the bag and put them on the table. John handed them to Lockhart and said flatly, use this when you really have to do something. It contains the iron armor curse and the petrification curse. This is a newly made prop, which can allow Lockhart to support the scene at critical times. Lockhart is like a treasure, and being suspected of his strength these days has put him under a lot of pressure. Thank you, Mr. Wick, I will do my job well. John got up to leave. Before leaving, he said lightly, call me John. As I said, networking is also an important part of a good wizard. Lockhart was taken aback for a moment. He thought that John was using an excuse to threaten himself to show off his might. Now it seems that maybe John really wanted to cultivate his contacts. Yes, cultivate, as with Percy, give him power, give him fame. Well, John, I'll write to you after my term ends. Lockhart made a gesture, John nodded and left. October has arrived, the temperature drop was huge, and many little wizards were infected with the flu. Madame Pomfrey prepared some refreshing potions for this purpose. Although the ears would smoke after drinking it, the effect was amazing. As a student who performed well in potions class, John was also called to help. After sending refreshing medicine to the school hospital, John heard crying as he passed the corridor on the second floor. He walked towards where the sound was and saw Peeves throwing stones into the girls' bathroom, and there is a female student ghost crying about being bullied. Peeves, you can go now. Peeves was bullying Myrtle, and when he heard the voice, he turned his head and looked, and when he saw that it was John, he was so frightened that he knocked down the medieval armor and ran away. Isn't it just to fix you a few times? As for, seeing Peeves react so strongly, John couldn't help muttering. Walking into the girls' bathroom, he saw the ghost of the bullied female student still crying, and asked, are you okay? Myrtle screamed and flew through John's body, and John felt as if he had been thrown a basin of cold water, which made him uncomfortable. Sorry, I just... Before the words were finished, Myrtle began to cry again. Remembering her grief, John felt a headache seeing this situation. He really didn't know how to deal with ghosts, but the clothes on Myrtle made him curious. Are you a student at Hogwarts? Myrtle wears somewhat different Hogwarts student clothes, which makes John wonder if Hogwarts students ever die. Or did he forget to take away his body and become a ghost like Professor Binns? Myrtle wears glasses, has straight hair, and wears clothes that seem to be from a long time ago. Of course I'm a student at Hogwarts. Myrtle stopped crying and glared at John before jumping into a broken toilet. Well, it seems that not all ghosts are easy to talk to. Spreading his hands, John walked out of the bathroom, picking up the overturned sign that said malfunction and putting it away. John went back to the Slytherin lounge. Joel, don't eat too much, you're almost like a pig. And you, Crab, stop and don't make me angry, okay? Daphne scolded Goyle and Crab in the Slytherin common room, and she really couldn't understand why these two guys were so edible. Pansy sneered bitterly, maybe they were domestic pigs. After John walked in, he saw Daphne snatching back the cupcakes that Goyle had taken. Here is your letter, John, brought by your dog from outside. Daphne immediately restrained herself and showed a ladylike image, and at the same time handed the two envelopes to John like a Slytherin mistress. Tom brought it? John raised an eyebrow. In the lower right corner of one of the letters, there were 3 ink dots that seemed to have been accidentally dropped on it. John frowned, and it seemed that it was from Johnny the Silver Hand. Nodding to Daphne, thank you for helping me take care of Tom. Daphne raised her head proudly, but her ears were a little red. Back in the dormitory, John opened the envelope, and the contents inside made his brows loosen. Mr. Dharma Alex Belby will be honored on October 10th. It looks like your investment is starting to pay off, John smiled. Chapter 66 The Rated Shop and Luna's Shoes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. This is good news, making John smile. With this in mind, John opened the second envelope. It's from Tommy Shelby, and it's not good news. The shop was attacked. Staring at the lines in the letter, Johnny Silverhand's store was attacked one night, and it was 3 black wizards who did it. Although he was repelled by Tangmi, there were still signs of his return. Mr. Bojin is a person who knows the goods. The store is not well known, but the things inside are very good. Tangmi found out that these people had relations with Bojin Bok. He sent 3 wizards to destroy the unexpected visitor who threatened the business, but unfortunately they were unsuccessful. It seems that my concerns are correct. Tangmi has recruited 3 werewolf partners, and it should come in handy. After the last recruitment, Tangmi successfully found his 3 werewolf friends. They are all at the bottom who are discriminated against by the magic world, and they are grateful for John's ability to provide a job. It's time to teach me a lesson, otherwise after the award, these troubles will only increase. There was a stern look in John's eyes. There are no honest people in Nocturne Alley, and they have to be hurt. Just after a while is the night of the full moon. Let the werewolves dispatch. I hope this time, the future troubles can be directly eliminated. John snapped his fingers, and the letter caught fire. He watched the letter turn into ashes blankly, and asked Basil to deliver the letter to Tangmi, along with the amulet and the ring of spells he had prepared. Arming these people to the teeth, he will destroy Bojenbach in one fell swoop. At the same time, he wrote to Alex Dharma, hoping that he could get the Ministry of Magic to conduct a search of Nocturne Alley. With the influence and pure blood status of being awarded the Order of Merlin. First class, Dharma Alex can do this. After everything was done, John also started the same job as Lockhart. The difference is that Lockhart's letters are all book fans, while John is an alchemy expert or rune scholar. Some masters of potion science also became his pen pals because of the introduction of Dharma Alex, and the response to him was very good. Maintaining these contacts is also a job. John wrote letters one by one. Barty Crouch thank you note. That the last letter caught John off guard. After opening it, it was sent by Barty Crouch, the director of the International Magic Exchange and Cooperation Department. He thanked Johnny Silver for giving him a good job for his subordinates. This director is quite affectionate. Tangmi used to be an auror under Barty Crouch, and he was heartbroken that his subordinate turned into a werewolf. Now that I know that John has given Tangmi a stable and good job, I personally wrote a letter to thank him. At the same time, Barty Crouch also knew about John's sale of Wolfbane potion, and he attached a thank you again, thanking John for his contribution to werewolves in the magic world. It's a person worthy of deep friendship. John picked up the quill and wrote back to Barty Crouch, Ding, the magic power has been upgraded successfully. The current magic power is level 4. After taking Neville to finish his exercise by the Black Lake, John saw Neville sit down. Neville asked from the bottom of his heart, John, why do we exercise even though we are wizards? Only a healthy body can support a strong soul. John kicked Neville, telling him to get up and swing his sword. The miserable Neville had no choice but to do so, and the two parted in the corridor after the exercise. It was raining, and John saw barefoot Luna running around like a headless chicken in the corridor. Beside her was Ginny Weasley, the little Weasley girl who had unsurprisingly entered Gryffindor. It's just that the little girl looks a little haggard. Last time Percy said that his sister had a cold, it was probably because of this. What are you looking for? John saw that they were looking for something. Luna greeted John in a trance. John, nice to meet you, you didn't get caught in the rain. Ginny Weasley had also heard John's name. She and Luna were good friends, and she said angrily, it's the Ravenclaws. They hid Luna's shoes. It's a game. This is not a game. Luna's tolerance made Ginny unable to accept her good friend being bullied, especially when she communicated with the person in the diary. She was even more afraid of losing this friend. Okay, maybe I can help you find it. John noticed that Ginny was agitated, and he comforted them both. Suddenly, a cat emerged from the corner. It was Mrs. Norris. John leaned over and stroked its head, and said softly, Mrs. Norris, can you find Luna's shoes for me? Mrs. Norris glanced at Luna who was there, leaned over and turned around as if remembering something, then it turned and walked down another corridor, and John followed. This scene surprised Ginny, because she had heard of Filch's cat, which would report for Filch. After reaching the corridor on the 5th floor, Mrs. Norris sat down and screamed towards the top. John looked up. Luna's shoes were hanging on it. Taking out the wand and using the magic spell to remove the shoes, John fed the cat. Strips he carried to Mrs. Norris. I have to find some time to brush your hair for you. After not brushing Mrs. Norris for a while, her hair is matted again. Mrs. Norris left after eating the cat strips, and John said goodbye to the two. You can ask me for help with anything. Seeing that Luna didn't seem to be doing well in Ravenclaw, John left this sentence. Just arrived at the library, John also went inside. He has a note written by Lockhart and has free access to the restricted section. For convenience, he asked Lockhart to write a dozen of them. After entering the restricted section, John searches for books about the curse. The Book of Spells, it may be useful to me. John picked it up to leave, stopping before passing a book. Looking at the empty space, John said thoughtfully, I remember there is a book here. When I came over in the first grade, there was Secrets of Advanced Dark Arts here, but now this book is gone. John just felt a little weird, and then he saw another Toxic Magic. Stopping, he took the book with him. Under Ms. Pance's death gaze, John took out 2 notes without changing his expression. After successfully taking away the 2 books, John went straight to the Gryffindor Chamber of Secrets. When it came out again, it was already night. He had an extra wand in his hand, and it belonged to Ron. Making a wand takes longer than I thought it would. The wand was 14 inches long, very long. In defense against the dark arts class on Monday, Lockhart was used to being a hands-off shopkeeper. After finishing my teaching materials, I will enter the actual combat. Naturally, it was John who was in charge. Lockhart is the first professor in the history of Hogwarts to have 2 assistants, and John is also responsible for his classmates, showing them how to quickly knock down a Tibetan snowman. After class, John gave Ron the new wand made from the old core. I almost forgot I still had a wand. Only then did Ron remember that he was holding John's wand. After getting the wand again, he felt that the wand was very handy. You really can make wands, said Hermione sharply. Of course, do you think I'm joking? John laughed. Hermione was a little embarrassed. She thought John's workmanship would be rough, but this wand was very delicate. Great, now I can make Malfoy suffer. These days Ron and Malfoy have been at odds, and both of them have used the curse at least 3 times. Hello, John. Percy passed by with his head upright. His appearance made Ron very disgusted and said, You don't know that Lockhart made him an assistant, which made him very proud. Harry also felt that Percy had been getting more and more airy lately, and becoming an assistant in defense against the dark arts gave Percy more power. It's a good thing, isn't it? John didn't know what Ron was thinking. Isn't it a good thing that his brother has more power? After saying goodbye to several people, John went to the dormitory to take Tom out for a walk. When he got back to the bedroom, he heard Tom yelling very fiercely. John pulled out his wand and walked in. A house elf in a pillowcase was cornered by Tom and dared not fight back. More than. Chapter 67 Meeting Dobby and Finding the Chamber of Secrets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Can Dobby get into Hogwarts? John's eyes changed. He didn't expect the magic of house elves to be so high. Hogwarts has anti-apparition magic, and wizards cannot apparate here. Dobby could come to the Slytherin lounge without disturbing anyone. Okay, Tom. Preventing Tom from continuing to pounce on Dobby, John looked at Dobby and asked, What are you doing here? Dobby wants John Wick to protect Harry Potter. It's too dangerous here. Dobby's ears drooped. Dobby prevented Harry Potter from going through the partition, but he still made it to Hogwarts. Did you do it? John remembered the incident when Harry was stopped by the partition wall at the beginning of school. His eyes were cold and he said, Did you know that Harry and Ron were almost expelled because of this incident? His tone was so harsh that Dobby couldn't look directly at him. Dobby knows, but danger looms in the castle. John yelled, Enough, don't play charades, tell me what the danger is. Dobby seemed to have thought of something, and slammed his head at the cabinet beside him. John was so irritable that he raised his hand without even taking out his wand, and said angrily, Stand still. Dobby, who was still self-harming, was frozen stiff. John was stunned, and looked at his right hand, and he succeeded in casting a spell without a stick. It seems that emotion is the key. His expression changed. In the wizarding world, one's emotions seem to be able to materialize. It is known that the most powerful magic of idealism is the magic called love cast on Harry. With the strength of Harry's mother, she was no match for Voldemort at all, but she could defeat Voldemort with the magic of love to the extreme. There are also 3 unforgivable curses. The killing curse is the release of the ultimate killing intent, and malice is also a requirement for many black magics. John felt that his understanding of magic had improved a bit. He looked up at Dobby, who had big eyes and felt aggrieved, and said with a headache, "I see. I will continue to protect Harry. Don't do anything to Harry again." He was really afraid that this house elf would lose his mind and do something to Harry at school. Although he was talking about protecting Harry, these methods were very troublesome. Dobby thanks John Wick for his help. After finishing speaking, Dobby snapped his fingers and made a sound to leave. John watched him disappear, growing more envious of the apparition. "You have to learn it quickly. I don't want to go back to other countries." The book he had borrowed had a spell about apparition, but it was dangerous and needed someone to guide him. A little carelessness may cause a split state, and there are not a few wizards who cannot be treated in time and die. After thinking about it, John was the first to dismiss the idea of finding his own dean, not to mention that Professor Snape seemed to have an opinion on him, but even if Hogwarts had apparition courses, he would not interfere. You can't wait until the 6th grade to study. After waiting too long until then, John decided to find a helper himself. Forget about the 4 deans, they will not take the lead in breaking the rules. Among the Hogwarts professors, the other professors are more focused, so they can't let Lockhart be their training partner, right? In that case, John decided he might as well have waited until 6th grade. Maybe I can find Tangmi to be my training partner during the vacation. Tangmi is a former Auror, and he will certainly know about apparition. Near the window, John saw the deep color of the Black Lake. The moonlight fell through the lake, and John said to himself, "It's a full moon." In Diagon Alley, the 4 wizards completed their transformation under Mundunga's horrifying gaze. They drank Wolfbane potion before transforming, and they still maintained their sanity after transforming. 4 pairs of oily green eyes crossed the street, and Bogenbach Antique Store didn't realize what a terrible group of people it had provoked. The boss, Mr. Bogene, is planning how to close down the Johnny Silver Hand store, and he has invited 6 black wizards. "Go in and tell them to get out of Diagon Alley. I won't treat you badly." Mr. Bogene promised these outlaws, and the eyes of the black wizards showed greed. Just as he was about to go out, a sudden change occurred. Boom! Bogenbach's gate was smashed, and the red light hit a black wizard and disarmed him. The tall figures shrouded in black robes could not see their faces. They moved quickly and could cast powerful spells. Mr. Borgin screamed, "Stop them, stop them!" The dark wizards began to move, and their wands shot jinxes. It landed on the 4 men in black robes, but they couldn't even stop them. They were like gods of death, and one of the men in black just snapped his fingers at the black wizard, who was hit by the stun spell and lost consciousness on the spot. Mr. Bogene backed away in horror, and asked loudly, "Who are you?" "You've got the wrong man, Boggin Burke." The green eyes enlarged in Mr. Bogene's sight, and he fled back in fright. The 4 were well trained and easily subdued all the dark wizards, and Tangmi chased after Mr. Bogene without any hassle, until Mr. Borgin fled into a room without any light. Downton had a keen sense of smell and knew that Mr. Borgin was hiding inside. "This is his treasure house." Downton's green eyes patrolled the darkness for a while, and Mr. Bogene didn't dare to breathe. Fortunately, not long after, the man in black robe left. Several black wizards were all captured, and Mr. Bogene felt that they were in danger. Spend a thrilling night inside the treasure house. It wasn't until the next day that Mr. Boken dared to go out. He thought he was fine, but when he opened the door, he saw several Aurors standing outside. The Auror went straight to his treasury without saying a word, which contained a large amount of grey trading property. At this moment, there was a bang in his head, and he knew he was done. Sadly, he didn't know who he had offended from the beginning to the end, like that powerful black-robed team, but also Aurors. Neither of the 2 forces can be owned by ordinary people. In the end, Bogenbach was closed, because Aurors searched for a large number of black magic items in it, and these things were extremely dangerous. One necklace has claimed the lives of 19 muggles. The case became a sensation, and Mr. Boggin faced paying a hefty fine and entry to Azkaban. The original Bogenbach antique shop was replaced by another name, Silverhand's Johnny Store. As expected of a former Auror, the reaction is really quick. John received the letter after Bogenbach was closed. Downton and the others did a good job, throwing the broken wands of 6 dark wizards with a record of killing muggles at the entrance of the Ministry of Magic. With these people and the black magic props in that warehouse, Mr. Bogin's chance of turning around again is almost zero. Mundungus did a good job. He bought the original building of Bogenbach at the first time and spent a lot of money presumably. These are just a drop in the bucket for John, because Dharma Alex has completed the award and the Wolfsbane potion has spread. Now all werewolves from all over the world come to buy potions, allowing Johnny Silverhand to quickly accumulate wealth. At the same time, he also expanded his power and recruited several wizards. These people were all qualified and trustworthy wizards through the investigation of his connections. Head of the Auror office, Rufus Scrimgeour. There was a special letter in the letter from the Johnny Silverhand store, and John smiled knowingly after reading the contents. He is a smart man, and he found Johnny the Silver Hand from the clues. John lit a flame in his hand and burned the letter. Some things don't need to be put on the table. He asked Mundungus to send an amulet to Rufus Scrimgeour, which was a tacit understanding between the two. Presumably, the appearance of the amulet can improve the combat power of the Auror, and the director of the Auror office should not refuse this. It had been a rainy day today, and John heard Filch growling in the hallway. Harry was caught, and John didn't think much of it after taking a look. He was looking for the secret room, a secret room. That appeared in the 2nd grade. There is only one clue, the bathroom. However, he searched all the bathrooms in the school, but he still didn't find the secret room. He had no choice but to go back in disappointment. When he reached the 2nd floor, he heard Myrtle crying again. Maybe I can ask the ghost. John slapped his head. These ghosts have been around Hogwarts for so long, there are always clues. He walked into the girls' bathroom and saw Myrtle crying sentimentally again. Chapter 68 Whispers and Shadows. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Myrtle, I want to ask you something. Some things? Well, as long as you don't dislike me. Myrtle's sensitive emotions were a headache, and John could only try not to touch them. I want to ask, do you know which secret rooms are in Hogwarts? Myrtle flew out of the toilet with a puzzled look on her face. The Chamber of Secrets? I've never seen that before. Well, it looks like I need to ask someone else. John didn't get an answer and was about to leave. When he walked out, he bumped into someone. I'm here to find Myrtle, I hope you understand. He looked at the person with some embarrassment, and was caught coming out of the girls' bathroom. Ginny was a little panicked. She didn't dare to meet John's eyes, and the black leather book in her hand fell from her hand. Are you all right, Ginny? John found that something was wrong with her and wanted to help her pick up the diary. It was this action that made Ginny scream, "Don't touch him. Feel sorry." Withdrawing his hand, John watched as Ginny picked up the black leather book and left quickly. He wondered, why does it feel like something is wrong with Ginny? Compared with the last time we met, Ginny is in a very unstable state now, and his face was haggard, as if he hadn't slept well for many days. Maybe I should ask Luna. John left the girls' bathroom, and after he left, Ginny circled back. There were whispers in her ears, making her dazed. Have you ever read? John, who was about to go to Filch's office to brush Mrs. Norris' hair, heard the conversation, and Filch's nervous stammer made him stop. It's not mine, it's for a friend of mine, it may seem, but... Filch stammered without the aggressiveness of the past, and John leaned closer to see Harry in the office, and Filch stood there at a loss as if he had done something wrong, and in the end Filch let Harry go without even punishing Harry. Strangeness. John felt that something was wrong with everyone today, and everything was wrong. After Harry left, he saw Filch nervously hiding a letter. He knocked on the door and went in, and Mrs. Norris meowed. Filch turned around stiffly, and when he saw that it was John, he was obviously relieved. John didn't bother. He waved to Mrs. Norris, and Mrs. Norris ran over. I don't think you mind if I brush it. When, of course. Filch was still a little nervous. John shrugged and led Mrs. Norris out. Take out the comb and comb Mrs. Norris's tangled hair. The hair on her body was finally no longer tangled. and Mrs. Norris circled around John as if thanking her. John waved it away. Walking in the corridor, John heard the slightest strange sound. Sounds like crawling. John moved closer to the wall and pressed his ear to it. His facial features were sharp, and the faint movement sound disappeared after a while. John stroked his chin and said thoughtfully, "It's not like a mouse, it's more like a dragging sound." Something crawled by his feet. John looked down and saw a group of spiders. Swarms of spiders left. What happened to them? Staring at the spiders leaving in groups, John felt something was wrong. Thinking of spiders, John thought of the spider den that he and Hagrid went to in the first grade. "Forget it, let's go to Hagrid's." John shook his head and headed to Hagrid's cabin. He didn't see Hagrid when he arrived, but he saw Fawn. "Where's Hagrid, Yaya?" John asked casually. Yaya got up and took John to the back of the house. Hagrid had a flock of chickens there, but today it was a heap of corpses. Hagrid was here to investigate, and when John came over, Hagrid said angrily, "Someone killed my chicken, it's too cruel." These chickens were not killed by animals, and there were no signs of animal bites, indicating that they were done by humans. Hagrid was furious that he had raised the chickens. John was lost in thought. The spiders in the castle left in groups, and Hagrid's chicken was killed again, all of which revealed weirdness. After staying with Hagrid for a while, John came to the Whomping Willow. The Whooping Willow has almost recovered, and it is estimated that it will fully recover in a week. It's just that there are a lot less branches on the top, and they were all taken out by John for alchemy. To this end he expanded various amulets, as well as rings of spells. Two things played a huge role in the attack on Borgenbach, and Mr. Borgin had no doubts that a werewolf did it, because werewolves can't use magic after transforming. Dumping the dung around, John encounters Luna near the Whomping Willow. "Ginny has something to do." Luna has observant eyes, and her ethereal voice seems to sing, "She hasn't looked at me lately. I also think there is a problem." John nodded approvingly. Ginny didn't know him well, so he was going to let Ron see if something was wrong with him. In potions class, John threw the sliced bat spleen into the cauldron, stirred it counterclockwise 4 times, and heated it on low for 30 seconds. With a wave of his wand, a swelling potion was completed. Professor Snape added 20 points to Slytherin. After class, John found Ron and mentioned Ginny to him. Ron said he would pay attention, but soon brought the topic to the wand. "This wand is simply amazing." Ron was not stingy with his praise, and John nodded modestly. Harry leaned over and invited John. "We are going to Nearly Headless Nick's death day, do you want to go with us?" To be honest, Harry regretted agreeing a bit, and that day happened to be the Halloween party. Better to celebrate with your classmates than a horde of ghosts. John waved his hand and refused. "Sorry, I don't have time that day. I have to take care of the Whomping Willow." "Okay." Harry also knew that John was not available, so he didn't continue the invitation. On the night of the Halloween party, John came back from the Whooping Willow and saw the spider again. "What is it?" Staring at the trajectory of the spider's movement, John found it. He remembered the danger Dobby said. Could it be this? Looking for the past all the way, John came to the corridor on the 2nd floor. He found a puddle of water at the corner of a hallway. "Where does the water come from? It doesn't rain here." John felt that the water was a bit strange, so he searched along the road where he found the water. He circled back to the girls' bathroom, just about to go in. John thought of the embarrassment before, and he stopped. There should be no one around, right? Feeling guilty, John looked around. After walking into the girls' bathroom, he saw a puddle of water on the ground. It made him think. Could it have been made by Myrtle? John walked over to the toilet to see if Myrtle was there. At this moment, a black shadow flashed in the mirror. John's nerves were tense, and he pulled out his wand without hesitation and looked back. He heard the sound of something moving. Being cautious, John was inexplicably depressed, walked towards each cubicle. None of them. John was wondering where it was when he heard a cat meowing. "Mrs. Norris." Hearing the voice, John recognized Mrs. Norris. The cat was outside in the hallway and John walked out. Mrs. Norris is climbing up and down, and it seems to have discovered something. "Be careful, Mrs. Norris, there may be danger here." John reached out and touched Mrs. Norris' chin. He followed Mrs. Norris and searched in the corridor. The flashing black shadow didn't know what it was, but his intuition told John that it was dangerous. He felt like something was watching him, and it made him nervous. Mrs. Norris walked to a pool of water at the corner. It might be thirsty and was drinking there. There was a movement in John's ear, and then he heard a cat screaming. Turning his head to look, the big black guy is over there. John shot directly without any hesitation. Petrificus totalis. The petrifying curse had no effect on that shadow. John cursed secretly. Before the other person turned his head, John cast a disillusionment charm on himself and ducked around the corner. He noticed that Mrs. Norris's body was gradually becoming petrified, and John knew that this thing was very dangerous. Pulling out the ironwick sword, John attacked by feeling bones in pieces. Reducto. White light hit the wall. Chapter 69. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In order to confirm where the shadow was, John used the mirror of ironwick sword to look. It was a huge thing, with black scales and a crest of scarlet on its head. Just being there is enough to swallow the troll. John cursed secretly where this thing came from, and saw the black shadow turn around. John saw a pair of big yellow eyes from the sword, and he felt his body become stiff just after touching it for a moment. No, it's petrochemical. That he turned pale with fright. He didn't expect that just seeing the eyes would make him fall into the trap. John's magic resisted petrification, but to little effect. Damn, that if he is petrified, he will definitely finish the game. John let out a low growl, his eyes turned into vertical pupils, and the petrified pride on his body slowed down. Without hesitation, he reached into the small bag he was carrying, and took out bottles of medicine. Pouring the antidote into his mouth didn't do much, so John got another bottle. In such a race against time, before it was completely petrified, John touched the antidote refined from the mandrake. After he drank it, the petrification on his body was lifted. This was refined by stealing a pot of mandrake in the greenhouse last semester while Professor Sprout was not paying attention. There is only one bottle. Is it a curse? After John opened the longan, he could see that the eyes were covered with a strong curse. Without hesitation, John turned on the flame mode. Under the effect of the burning magic of the flame sword, the reflected curse was burned, and he saw the black shadow approaching towards him through the blade of the sword. The moment the shadow approached, John closed his eyes and slashed at the shadow with only his ears attached to the flame spell. Ironwick sword finally pierced through the scales of the shadow. Blood left along the blade, and John heard the black figure growling in pain. Immediately after the strong wind swept by, John rolled and escaped. No, you have to dodge. He turned around and ran in the direction he remembered. After being injured, the black shadow became very manic and chased after John. After activating the flying boots, John opened his eyes with his back to the shadow and began to shift positions. Through the reflection of the sword, John could see that the shadow was still chasing him. Counting the time, the Halloween party is almost over. If this monster with killing eyes breaks in, I'm afraid the entire school will be wiped out. John made up his mind to run out of the castle. After he ran out, for a while, he looked at the blade again, and the black figure behind him disappeared. Left. John stopped and thought of something. His face changed drastically and he ran back. On the second floor, Harry saw Mrs. Norris, his most hated cat, hanging there. Mrs. Norris was hung on a torch stand, and her body was as hard as a plank. There is a line of blood writing on the wall. The Chamber of Secrets has been opened. Those who are enemies of the heir, be vigilant. Ron read the above words tremblingly, and when they realized that they should leave first, the Halloween party was over. A large crowd of young wizards witnessed the scene, and Filch pushed his way through the crowd to see what had happened to his cat. He stumbled back a few steps, scratched his face with his hands in horror, and let out a heart-piercing roar. My cat, my cat. What's the matter with Mrs. Norris? His appearance makes people feel a little pitiful for him. Malfoy laughed when he saw the blood on the wall. Filch insisted that Harry killed his cat, and screamed that he would kill Harry to avenge Mrs. Norris. Dumbledore rushed to the scene. He was the first to find some traces. Someone had fought here. There was an uproar among the student groups, and a kind of panic spread here. Dumbledore knew that all these emotions should be suppressed now, and he asked the first witness, the three little ones, to leave with him. Filch looked at them with hatred, and Lockhart offered to send Dumbledore to the nearest office. After they left, John came back here. He stared at the blood writing on the wall, and glanced at the crowd. He knew that when he was fighting that shadow, there were no words here. This shows that after he lured away the shadow, there were still people coming here. Who the hell is it? John was lost in thought, and the prefect was taking the students back from his house. Gemma, I have something to do. Gemma Farley, the sixth-year Slytherin prefect, wanted John to leave, but John left a word and went in the opposite direction. Gemma Farley was a little helpless, but she still pretended not to see it. John came to the girls' bathroom, where he first saw the shadow. When he came here, the water stains were still there, so he cautiously used his sword as a wayfinding. Not here. John checked the entire girls' bathroom, but couldn't find the shadow. Instead, I saw Myrtle, but John didn't have time to talk to her now. After leaving the girls' bathroom, John's brows never loosened. He knew the danger of that thing. It was no longer whether Harry was in danger, but the whole school might be in danger. Dumbledore must be told. John made up his mind. It was no small matter. He needed the Great White Lord. Go to Lockhart's office immediately. I remember something very similar happened in Ouagadougou, a series of attacks, which are well documented in my autobiography. Lockhart was bragging about his autobiography again, and none of the professors present would really believe him. Dumbledore judged that Mrs. Norris was not dead, but was petrified. Filch wept bitterly, his tear-stained face turned viciously at Harry. Dumbledore told him that it was impossible for a second-year student to do that, but when he said this sentence again, he thought of John. If anyone in the second grade is most likely to do this, it's most likely John. And at this dinner party, John was not there. For John, he has mixed emotions, the other party's excellence and eagerness to learn, as well as the charm of being close to each other, are all consistent with the best student at Hogwarts. This worried him. Filch insisted that Harry and the others did it, because Harry saw the correspondence letter in which he quickly chanted, and he knew he was a squib. The most unexpected thing was that Snape came out to speak. He said in a mocking tone that it was impossible for Harry to have such magical attainments, but the timing of the appearance of the three little ones was suspicious. Harry felt uneasy and kind, and didn't say that he heard strange noises, just that he was tired and wanted to go to bed early. Lame lies can be heard by anyone. Professor Snape is no exception. He even wanted Harry to quit the Quidditch team, which made Professor McGonagall, a die-hard Quidditch fan, quit. The two almost got into an argument, with Filch yelling that his cat had been petrified. John felt that he should not go in now. Maybe he could see the two deans fighting, but knowing that Dumbledore was here was unlikely. The discussion inside was over, and Dumbledore asked Professor Snape to refine the potion for depetrification. The three little ones came out first, but instead of going back, they found an empty classroom and started a discussion. John wanted to talk to Dumbledore, but he had no choice but to follow, because Dobby said that these things were all about Harry, and he promised Dobby to protect Harry from danger. In an empty classroom. You say, should I tell them about the voice I heard? Harry was a little uneasy. Only he heard the voice, which made him feel bad. Out of consideration for his friend, Ron told him not to speak, and said, it's not a good sign to hear voices that others can't hear, even in the wizarding world. Harry asked, you believe me, don't you? Of course Ron believed it, which relieved Harry slightly. At this moment, a voice sounded in the empty classroom. Harry, where did you hear the voice? This made Harry tense up in fright. Hermione recognized the familiar voice and asked tentatively, John? It's me. The disillusionment spell was lifted, and John appeared out of nowhere, seemingly from the darkness. He stared at Harry and asked word for word, you can hear that voice, right? John, did you hear that too? Realizing that something was wrong in John's words, Harry hurriedly asked, I heard it in the corridor on the second floor. That's right. There was a flash of light in John's eyes. After the thing left and returned to the second floor, it disappeared. Maybe the shadow base camp was on the second floor. Ding, trigger the exploration mission, find Slytherin's Chamber of Secrets, get the reward blessing, snake catcher. Snake catcher. Increased damage to snakes, not affected by the curse of snake poison. Trigger the quest, and John knows where that thing came from. It was just a question of where the Slytherin Chamber of Secrets was. John took a deep breath. He needed help. Looking at the three little ones, he said in a concentrated voice, I met that thing. It was a huge snake with very dangerous eyes. The three little ones stared wide-eyed. John actually met the murderer. Harry hurriedly asked, you mean, you know who the murderer is? No, there is another person besides the snake. He wrote blood on it after I left. We need to find it. If you want to say that the helper is the best, the protagonist is naturally the best. after John said it, the three little ones also realized the seriousness. The heir to the secret room is the most dangerous one. John commissioned the three to find the heir to the Chamber of Secrets, while he went to Dumbledore's office. It's just that when he got to the door, he was in trouble because he didn't have a password. Chapter 70 Power Supremacy and Pulling Hatred. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After wandering around in front of the extremely ugly stone statue for a while, he had no choice but to lift the illusion spell, and said to the stone statue, "Tell Professor Dumbledore that John Wick is looking for him." The stone statue turned its head, as if it understood. After a while, the stone statue jumped aside. John knew that Dumbledore knew he was coming, and he walked in. It was a rotating passage, and at the top was the principal's office. Knocking on the wooden door with the griffin brass ring, the door in front of John opened without wind. It was the first time he entered inside. It was a large, beautiful circular room, filled with all sorts of funny little sounds, on the table with slender legs. There are many strange and weird silverware, spinning, emitting small puffs of smoke. The patched sorting hat sat on a shelf, and beside it in a glass case stood a silver sword with a large ruby in its hilt. There is also a bird that is almost losing its feathers on the shelf behind the door. It is said that the plucked phoenix is not as good as the chicken, and now John finally saw it. Dumbledore's eyes hidden under the half-moon glasses watched John coming, and there was a hint of seriousness in his deep voice. "John, it's already curfew time." "I know, Professor Dumbledore." John nodded respectfully, and said seriously, "But I can't just sit back and watch Hogwarts be in danger." These words did not sound alarmist. Dumbledore said seriously, "I hope to get an answer. There was a snake at school, it was huge, and I ran into it." As John said, Dumbledore's face became serious. "John Wick, if what you say is true, Hogwarts is in danger." Dumbledore did not take John's words as a joke, because such things had happened in Hogwarts. He said in a concentrated voice, "I will ask the professors to step up patrols in the castle. John, I need your help to find the secret room." The monster that came out of the secret room, Dumbledore didn't know where the secret room was. Otherwise, when Hagrid was wronged, he couldn't just keep it. Slytherin's philosophy is contrary to the other three founders, and the secret room left before he left has always been a mystery of Hogwarts. The only hope lies in the heir of Slytherin. He wants to organize professors to prevent more serious things from happening, which makes it easier for John, a student, to investigate. There's another reason Slytherins want to get rid of mudbloods, then the existence of John is the primary object. John had come here just to get Dumbledore's support, and now that his goal had been achieved, he casually glanced at the bookshelf before leaving. He saw the missing secrets of advanced dark arts. He wondered, is this book worthy of Dumbledore's personal collection? Confused by the attack, when John returned to the Slytherin common room, he heard Malfoy lecturing. "Those Muggle-born wizards are not eligible to come to the school at all." Malfoy, who was talking loudly, was talking about rising when he suddenly found that there was no sound around him. He looked up and saw John standing outside the door. John. Malfoy broke into a cold sweat suddenly. He forgot that John was also a member of that group of Muggle wizards. John took a deep breath, and he walked into the common room expressionlessly. The Slytherin students inside moved away one after another, and Malfoy didn't want to go there or not. Looking around the past, the wizards who met John's eyes bowed their heads a little guilty. John said calmly, "Muggles are not worthy of entering the school." "Is this what you think?" "John, that's not what we mean." Daphne wanted to explain, but John raised his hand to stop him. He said lightly, "I know some of you have accepted an extreme pure blood theory, but it doesn't matter. I will give you a chance to show me the superiority of pure blood." Some of the Slytherins frowned, displeased by John's words, but John didn't care. All he wanted was that no one in Slytherin should gossip. "I hope to see all of you in defense against the dark arts class tomorrow." He was declaring war on the entire Slytherin by himself, not to mention the second-year wizards. Even the seniors thought he was crazy, but is John really crazy? He walked out of the crowd and walked back to the dormitory under everyone's gaze. Daphne walked towards Malfoy angrily, pointed to his nose and said, "John is angry, Malfoy." Malfoy's complexion changed. He habitually flaunted the superiority of pure blood, but he didn't expect to cause such a big commotion. News of John Wick declaring war on all of Slytherin spread like wildfire. The first reactions of the four houses upon hearing the news were all the same. They thought John was crazy. Harry woke up the next day and quickly found Ron and Hermione. Ron said in surprise, "My God, is John crazy? He wants to deal with the whole Slytherin. We have to help him." Hermione wanted to help her friend. This statement also made the other two agree, and soon they went to the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. The place was already full of people, and the Weasley twins saw a business opportunity, and opened the market to collect gambling money from the students. "Aren't you afraid that John will lose?" Harry didn't understand why the Weasley twins dared to offer 1:100 odds. Did they think John was Dumbledore? George blinked and said, "Of course, he's John Wick. He killed the troll in first grade." Fred added, "And beat Professor Quirrell. But, that's Slytherin, I mean, he takes on the whole house by himself." Ron thought his brother would lose his fortune, but the Weasley twins didn't think so. There was an extra long platform in the Defense Against the Dark Arts classroom. When Lockhart saw this scene, his eyes rolled and he felt that he could also imitate it. Professor Flitwick, the duel champion, was brought in as a referee, and Percy led the other prefects to maintain order. The Quidditch maniac, Wood, also mercifully stopped training today, and was here to watch. Almost all the students are here, and the classroom cannot be squeezed in. John stood on the long platform. He was wearing a loose wizard robe and a delicate badge on his chest. Just by being there, it was as if all the light had been gathered into it. Walking leisurely on the long platform, John stroked the badge on his chest with his right hand as a courtesy. "It's a great honor for everyone to be able to come to this comedy and sad arena. There have been countless Muggle wizards in the wizarding world who have proved that they have the same talent as pure blood, but some people have always maintained arrogance and prejudice. Their prejudice is both ridiculous and sad, and even more ironic. I organized this competition. The magic world should not be judged by bloodlines, but by strength. Anyone who feels that he can defeat me can come up." John's calm voice spread, and the prejudice of pure blood against Muggle wizards has not been a day or two, and John wants to tell them that strength is real, and everything else is fiction. Not long after he finished speaking, a fifth-year Slytherin walked up. Eddie Garfield. The other party came from the house, and John said calmly, "Ready? Get ready." A red light knocked the Slytherin student into the air. John held his wand in his left hand, and said calmly, "Next." It was so fast that the battle ended before even many students could react. Someone in Slytherin blushed and shouted for John to attack. John just glanced lightly, and the speaker fell silent for a moment. "As I said, those who are not satisfied can come up directly." His expression was calm, but it gave off a sense of arrogance. This made the proud Slytherin intolerable, and they came up one after another. But without exception, no matter whether it was a senior or a junior, they were all sent down by John. This is the person who defeated Gryffindor in a duel, and these students who are still in school are no opponents at all. Professor Flitwick's hands were almost swollen, and his eyes were shining. This is simply a dueling genius. With level 4 magic power and level 4 shattering spell, John never even moved his feet. By the end, there were more than 20 fallen people in Slytherin. Seeing that it was almost time, he cast a loud spell on himself. "I know there are rumors in the school that the Chamber of Secrets has been purged of Muggle wizards, and I can tell you here that he will not succeed." John wanted to find the air, scanning everyone's faces. They were surprised, admired, and afraid. "Because I am here, it is doomed that he cannot succeed." John declared war on that air. "Don't you want to attack Muggles? Then come on, the biggest Muggle wizard head is here. As long as he dares to make another move, John can follow the clues to find him." His words lifted the spirits of the panicked students, who cheered John's name. Among the crowd, panic appeared on Ginny's pale face. The three little ones were all excited by John, wishing they could find out the air immediately and beat them up. "Remember, it is not pure blood that is supreme, but strength is supreme." John glanced over, and those who had objections to him lowered their heads and did not dare to look directly at him. He stepped down from the platform, completely subduing Slytherin this time.